In a time when Africa stood at risk, as Europeans sought to seize control and African leaders shook hands with their very intruders, one woman stood fearless against the storm of invasion. This is the tale of Queen Njinga. Once upon a time, in 1483, the Portuguese voyaged into the heart of the Congo River. The people of the Congo Kingdom were taken aback with much confusion, and these natives called these foreign men Indele, masters of the white birds. At the time, trade was salient to the Congolese. They were far from idle. Craftspeople and farmers would entwine fine cloth and make jewelry out of different metals. So the Congolese had believed that the Portuguese had similar pursuits in creating additional trade links. Many moons went by, and by the 1500s, Portuguese evangelists and traders headed for the Congo Kingdom. The Portuguese surely multitasked. The evangelists were busy spreading Christianity, whilst the traders found a business that would make them a swell amount of money: slavery. Slavery was already present in Africa, and it was commonplace for people to be penalized and punished with it for paying off their debt and criminal acts. The Portuguese decided to take advantage of this existing structure. A large number of the slaves were needed for plantations, South American colonies, and settlements along the large African coast. Selling and buying humans became a lucrative, profitable business in Congo. Kings and chiefs started wars so that they could capture people to sell to the Portuguese. The art of war. This master plan worked. In exchange, the chiefs and kings were bartered with guns. These new-founded weapons gave the elite Congolese a significant amount of military power, and they were able to expand their dominions. The Portuguese then established Luanda, a major trading hub on the west coast of Africa, in present-day Angola, and it became the base of the Portuguese slave trade. In the early 1520s, slave catchers started to enslave people from northern Ndongo. The Portuguese called this country Angola after King Nzinga. Still, the country was originally called Ndongo. Around the year 1582, the daughter of a king was born in Ndongo, Princess Njinga. Her people, called the Babundu, had been fighting the Portuguese for a number of years. Her people greatly defended their cause. There was once a time where the father, who was King Nagola Kilonji, had traded slaves for weapons with the Portuguese. But their common interests soon vanished as the Portuguese sought to take over, dominate everything, control the slave markets and trade routes that the Mbundu oversaw. Princess Njinga heard about the clashes against the Portuguese by her people, and she knew of the stress her mother was going through when the warriors were gone for an extended amount of time. Her father was also a warrior. Njinga knew about the hurt and devastation of the other women when the men didn't return back from battle. Njinga's mother had once been a slave in the royal household. Her mother was the apple of once a young prince, Kolonji's eye. He wanted to tie the knot with her, but his family said no. Her mother was not Mbundu and a slave. Kalonji had to marry a woman who came from a noble Mbundu family. Kalonji loved Njinga's mother so extensively that she became his second wife. Princess Nzinga and her two sisters were looked at as outsiders, as they were not fully Mbundu. Only her younger half-brother was seen as such. Growing up, Princess Nzinga was close to her father, and he ensured that she was schooled, well instructed in leadership, trained and educated in military, religion and politics, along with the lifestyle of a young royal woman. Between the latter years of the 1590s and 1610s, Nzinga married and gave birth to a son. Her and her small family dwelled calmly away from the conflicts going on. In 1617, her father died. Shortly after, the royal court became a hazardous place. Mbande, her younger brother, became the new king. He tried to end anyone who came between him and the throne. When Mbande's brother died, an enigmatic death, Princess Nzinga's young son died. There were whispers that the new king, Mbande, had killed the two. The princess ended up leaving the Ndongo center, with her husband and two sisters. Mbundu was not on par with the kind of warrior his father had been. Old enemies of her people, along with the Portuguese, were going right for the heart of the kingdom. The Portuguese were getting hold of the Mbundu ongoings, which included the money-making slave trade. At one point, the Portuguese captured King Mbande's mother and also his wives. He headed out of the kingdom to escape on top of the islands of the Kwanza River. The Portuguese's pace was fast and strong, but not powerful enough to take over completely. Portuguese authorities of Luanda had their meetings, and they were unable to destabilize the kingdom in the way that they wanted to, without the presence of the king and his chiefs. A leader in Luanda wanted to seize the war. It has been said that the new king wanted his big sister by his side at this time as an ambassador. In 1622, the princess traveled to Luanda to meet with the governor. When she arrived, there was no seat for her at the table. She instructed one of the servants to get on their hands and knees so that she could take her seat. She told the governor that her brother wanted peace in the kingdom. She even agreed to a Christian baptism. She knew that the Portuguese refused to reason with Africans who had not been previously baptized. A settlement was made. The Portuguese would allow Mbande back on his throne, and the Mbundu would assist the Portuguese with the slave trade by reopening the slave markets. In the year 1624, Mbande, the king, passed. Whispers travelled. Some gathered that the princess orchestrated his demise. Could it have been revenge? There were laws set in place that a woman could not rule and take the throne. But the 42-year-old princess morphed into a queen. Within the same crowning year, a brand new governor in Luanda dismissed the concords between Njinga and the last governor. She had no support from the Portuguese, and because she was a matriarch, she had no fidelity from the Mbundu people. She strategized and got hold of the slaves who had bolted to the coastal plantations of the Portuguese settlers, in addition to taking war slaves from the Portuguese. Njinga had built up her own army. The governor of Luanda was not happy. The governor appointed a ruler to govern Ndongo that served the Portuguese interests. She left for the islands on top of the Kwanzaa River. From the long river, she pulled some strings and hit the Portuguese slave traders along with their African associates who were transporting slaves to the Mabundu kingdom. In 1626, Njinga and her two loyal sisters, Makambu and Kifunji, assisted her as the Portuguese leaders of Luanda initiated war on her. They were captured and imprisoned. A year later in Luanda, Makambu managed to flee, but Kifunji stayed in prison. Three years of war went on. The Portuguese were eager to take down Nzinga and her warriors. The training from a young age paid off. She continued to battle for her people. She fled and retreated to a former Ndongo kingdom called Matamba. Their king had passed away, and they were left without a much-needed ruler. This kingdom had previously been led by women, so she decided to take her seat at that throne. This twice-a-queen lady grew her army, and Matamba went on to be the largest state in the region. She took charge and controlled the slaves that came in to the region, and she sold off prisoners to buy firearms. By the year 1640, the Dutch drove out the Portuguese from Luanda and made alliances with Njinga. By the mid-1640s, captured her sister Makambu again and killed off her sister Kifunji. She was devastated. The Portuguese didn't stop there. In the same decade, the Portuguese re-established their structure in Luanda, and the Dutch disappeared within 2 years. Njinga made a peaceful agreement with the Portuguese in the year of 1656. She was also baptized for the second time, maybe for the same reason as the last time. After many years of war, adaptability, strength, and endurance, Queen Njinga passed away in 1663 at the age of 81. A truly determined ruler who did what she had to do. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.